Hari Om. Today we are going for mantra 8 of section 1, chapter 3 of Mundaka. The mantra reads, Na chakshusha grihyate na api vacha na anyer devai tapasa karmana va jnana prasadena vishuddha sattva tatastutam pashyate nishkalam dhyayamana. This is the mantra. Now, let us see the meaning in brief. He is not grasped by the eye, nor by the speech, nor by other senses, nor by tapas, nor by karma. When one's mind is purified by the clearness of knowledge, then alone he sees the indivisible Brahman through the process of contemplation. Now, Rishis have their own style of explaining to their disciples. In the previous mantra, a certain positive adjectives were indicated in the attempt to describe Atman, like Brahat, Divyam, Achintya Rupam, Sukshmadi Sukshmam, Dura, Ante, near, far, seated in the cave of the heart, etc. You have seen that in the last mantra. Now in this mantra, the Rishi is talking just an opposite track. He is taking an opposite track. Here, he cautions the student as to what are the routes that he should avoid to reach and experience Brahman. The forbidden paths. And later also advises him of the right path. Not only that he points out the wrong path, he also tells him about the positive path, the right path to go. Both is accomplished in this stanza, in this mantra. Now the Guru says, it is not seen by the eye of anybody because it has no form. Eyes can see only form. It cannot be grasped by speech because it cannot be the subject of words. It can't be known by other senses or sense organs of perception. Because these sense organs of perceptions are limited in their purview. Not only that, austerity alone, tapas alone, cannot fetch Brahman. You can't exchange tapas for Brahman. Take 4 kilo of tapas and give me 1 Brahman. You can't trade tapas with Brahman. Even karma enjoined by Vedas like yagas or say yajnas, though their greatness is well known, is also not an instrument that can capture Brahman. None of these things can ever capture him. What then can truly grasp it? This is the question. And this is not an objective test to give one-word answer. See, as I said, the Rishi has his own way of teaching the student, whose mental framework, whose spiritual development, whose inner personality engineering are all well known to the teacher. The entire biodata of the student is with him. So depending upon those parameters, the Rishi has to coin his phrases, words and ideas. Because after all, this is a classroom conversation. The Rishi says, what can truly capture is jnana prasadena. With calm and refined understanding by buddhi, a buddhi or chitta free from polluted, impure and unclear thoughts, duly certified by Pollution Control Board. Like a stained mirror or a muddy pool of water, it cannot grasp the true nature of Brahman. A muddy pool of water cannot take the proper reflection. A stained mirror cannot take the proper reflection. Thus, through a concentrated and clear mind and intellect equipment, we are to meditate and contemplate what we have known about the Brahman from the Gurus and scriptures. That would indeed be a great grand gateway to experience the truth. Now, some of the parameters indicated in this mantra needs to be further explained so as to avoid confusion or create disinterest in the studies of scriptures. Now, that the Brahman cannot be gauged or grasped through the finite equipment or instruments like eyes, words, speech, other sense organs, etc., is absolutely clear and there is no dispute. It cannot be grasped or understood by the limited finite organs. But to say that your karma or tapas will not give you the experience of Brahman is rather confusing. I understand, finite objects cannot give you infinite realization. But the karma as enjoined by Vedas, yagas and yajnas, the tapas that people perform, penance, austerity, to say that those will not give me an entrance to the kingdom of Atman, the self, the supreme, the reality, is a bit confusing. And the word karma indicated here is that enjoined by the Vedas, which is yagas and yajnas. Not our ordinary karma going to a sweetmeat shop and taking some pakoras or jalebis. Not those actions, or going to a textile shop and taking some saris. Here karma means karmas enjoined by, that is what Shankara says, karmas enjoined by Vedas, which means it is yagas or yajnas. Now these karmic functions are generally done for the welfare of humanity, Loka Kalyana, which is a noble endeavor, isn't it? Similarly, tapas. It is something that an ordinary person like you and me cannot perform. A great amount of inner discipline is to be acquired before you venture into tapas. It is like an Olympic race. You need great practice or sadhana, years together. Why then it cannot take one to the reality, is the doubt. We have to understand this very, very clearly. Now take karma. That is yagas and yajnas. True, they are performed for Loka Kalyana or Loka Sangraha. And Loka Kalyana and Loka Sangraha will happen after the yajna is done. No doubt. Great musicians sing Amrita Varshini Raga and cause rainfall. Very good. It is indeed a noble goal. The days of scorching summer and dry world, somebody sings Amrita Varsha Raga and causes rain to come. Very good. It's a noble work. Very, very, very noble goal also. No doubt about it. All these are not in question. But what is the mental attitude or the goal of the performer of the yajna? The yajna will yield result. But where is your eyes? Where is the eyes of the performer? What is the mental attitude of the performer while doing the yaga or yajna? For what he is doing? To reach heaven. Isn't it? He wants to enjoy the damsels there. He wants to have a cup of coffee with Indra and pat on his back and say, hello, how are you? He wants to enjoy that company. There you are. The nobility of the goal is polluted by your individual, selfish, private desires. Gone. And the whole glory is gone. World may enjoy. And they will say, tell you, thanks also. Finished. But you, your personal development, your personal progress of spirituality, full stop. It is not what you do that matter. The attitude behind the action is important. Now the effect of yaga or yajna is no doubt Loka Kalyan. But the effect of the very Loka Kalyan is heaven for me. If the world is getting Loka Kalyan, that Loka Kalyan which the world is enjoying, for me it is to enjoy heaven, not for anything else. How can such egocentric desires in your mind, with such egocentric desires in your mind, can never cross the gates of the mansions of Brahman? Think. That is why in Kaivalya Upanishad, and it's a very, very famous mantra, when great Mahapurushas come, when they are received at the gate, they are given a reception called Purna Kumbha. It's a very great significant thing. We have no time to describe all that. But at that point in time, when the Purna Kumbha is being offered and he touches the Purna Kumbha, the great saint or the guest touches the Purna Kumbha, and then a mantra from the Kaivalya Upanishad is chanted. It's first to start saying by na karmana na prajaya dhane na tyage nege na amrtatva manashu. Amrtatva or immortality is not attained by karma. It is not obtained by progeny, na karmana na prajaya. It is not obtained by bank balance. Na karmana na prajaya dhanena. Then what will obtain? Tyage nege na amrtatva manashe. Renouncing alone will get it. So it is a reminder to the great Acharya who is coming that this is what our philosophy eulogizes. And the sannyasi or the guest puts his hand on the Purna Kumbha and says, yes, I do realize. Na karmana. So karmas can never bring immortality. Now let us take tapas of the sannyasis. Ordinary people can't do tapas. It is the sannyasis who do the tapas. Okay. A householder suffering from persecutions of his mental pressure is understandable. He is a householder. He will have persecutions of his mind. He'll have the priorities of his mind, his body, mind, and intellect. He will have his limited desires or unlimited desires, maybe egocentric, because he's a grihastha. He has got a duty to feed his family. He will do it. He will have a desire. That is understandable. But is a wandering monk anyway better than a samsari? Generally. Exceptions may be there. Generally. What you see? The tyrannies of desire are universal and it respects no personality, and the reactions of desires spare none. Very difficult to shield the onslaught of desire. You may have a name of a sannyasi. You may have the outer garb of a sannyasi. No use. Shankara paints a picture of a true ascetic, a sannyasi, with all his external surroundings, and silently but eloquently points out his inner personality. He picturizes a sannyasi, a true sannyasi, and he also whispers to us, this is his external garb, but please have a look at his inside personality. He gives that picture very clearly. We will examine that. And a sannyasi is a poor and miserable creature under the hapless grip of desires. Let us see that Bhaja Govindam stanza, beautiful stanza. What a picture Shankara has drawn. He says, Agre Vanni Prishte Bhanu Ratrau Chupuga Samarpida Janu Karadala Bhiksha Tarutala Vasa Tadabina Munchat Asha Apasha. Please read it twice to convert into Malayalam. Agre, in front, Vanni, fire. In front is the fire. Prishte, back. Bhanu, sun. At the back is the sun. Ratrau, at the night. Chubuga Samarpida Janu. Janu is the chin. Chubuga is the knees of the legs. So at the night, the sadhu sits in such a manner that his chin is taking rest, or he is supported by the two knees of the legs. The legs, knees are folded and then it is taken up and the chin is brought down and it is resting on. Chubuga Samarpida Janu, he surrenders. The chin surrenders to the knees. You can see the picture. Karatala Bhiksha. He receives alms in his own scooped palm. Karatala Bhiksha. Tarutala Vasa. Taru means tree. Tala means under. Vasa means living. He lives under the shelter of some tree. All these are signs of a sannyasi, isn't it? Agre Vanni. In the daytime, in the Himalayan region, it is very, very cold. Even at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, it is cold. So what they do? They put a fire in front and show their chest into that fire and get the heat. Agre Vanni. But then that gives you warmth in your frontal area. But what about your backward area? Your, what do you call it? Behind. Prishte Bhanu. You turn against the sun. The sun is rising in the east, you turn towards the west. So the east is your back. So the sun is providing its warmth on your back, for your back. The Vanni is providing warmth for your frontal area. Agre Vanni, Prishte Bhanu. And during night, when you cannot put the fire, nor can you take the sun's help. What do you do? Self-help. Ratrau Chubuka Samarpida Janu. Confine yourself, reduce your size, bring your chin down to the knees of your legs and take rest on that and sleep. Ratrau Chubuka Samarpida Janu. Karatala Bhiksha. Whatever Bhiksha is provided, begging alms, he receives it in his own palm, folded palm, scooped palm. All these are good signs of a sannyasi. But Shankara says, have you seen this external outfit of the sannyasi? Yes, I have seen. It's a very good sannyasi. Yes. Please reserve your comments. Please have a look of his inside personality. Shankara says, Tadabi na munchat asha apasham. Yet, all this is true. He's a great sannyasi. Tadabi na munchat asha apasham. Yet the noose of desire do not spare him. Munchat asha apasham. The rope of asha is tying him down, not letting him go. His mind is full of ego and egocentric desires, although his external outfit is that of a sannyasi. Look at Ravana when he came to abduct Sita. What an outfit he had. A great and glorious sannyasi. But what was his mental foul inside? Isn't it? That's exactly the picture he's drawing here. So a mere sannyasa, however impressive it may be, will not be sufficient in itself for entry into the mansions of the reality. Renouncing the objects of the world is not real renunciation. Physically renouncing the objects of the world is fine. I can say, I don't go to a toddy shop. I don't go to that place. I don't go to this place. I can say, you need not go. You can stop your leg from going. You can stop your, your sense organs from going there. But here, sitting here, what will you do? Your whole mind is worked up. Isn't it? Therefore, to give up one's desire for them is a real sacrifice. Restraining from the objects is not a real renunciation. Sublimating the desire is what is required. And that is real sannyasa and real sacrifice. To give up one's desire for the objects is a real sacrifice, and to dry up this desire, we must distill our personality of its desire for craving. We must do a distilling process of our own personality. No doubt, self-denial at the level of senses or what shall I say, at the level of sense organs is definitely the means, but the goal is total elimination of even the thirst to enjoy. Merely renouncing the object is not important, but what is important is renouncing the thirst to enjoy. Despite my renouncing the thirst to enjoy, something comes for drinking, drink. It doesn't come, you are not bothered because you have no such desire. And without desire, if you are drinking, it is ego and egocentric action is not there. It is an action without ego, egocentric desire. So he who abstains himself forcibly from the enjoyment of the OET at the sense level, at the objective level, he is not enjoying anything. He is abstaining himself. Today is Ekadashi. Right from morning, I have not touched anything. Only water. And what is working out in your mind? Evening, what shall I have for dinner? So in the deep recesses of your mind, that mind craves for their indulgence, and this external outfit of a sannyasi and the internal mechanism or engineering of a glutton is termed as mithyachara in Bhagavad Gita. The mithyachara means hypocrite. Bhagavad Gita says, Karmendriyani samyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriyarthan vimudalpma mithyacharasya uchyate. He who sits idle, suppressing all physical acts, but permits the mind to dwell upon the sensual objects, is indeed a foolish soul and is known as a hypocrite. Karmendriyani samyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriyarthan vimudhalpma. He is a fool. Visheshena fool, a doctorate in foolery. Because he is a mithyacharasya uchyate. People call him as mithyachara, a hypocrite. Therefore, friends, a mere performance of yagas and yajnas or tapas or sannyas cannot ever take you to the realization of the self, cautions the Rishi. Such half-baked tapasvis or sannyasis should get back to their earlier field of activity and exhaust those little vasanas by performing actions without ego and egocentric desire, and they have to therefore get back to their commercial world to exhaust those vasanas as a refresher course and then get back to sannyas. So at that point in time, this Agrivani Prashtebhanu will be ornamental, it will not be a bane on him because he will not have any asha inside. This is the sum and substance of today's stanza. Let us see what we have in store for tomorrow. Hari Om.